Hi, welcome to my first YouTube video, which has taken me so long to try to start already because it feels so awkward talking to a camera when I haven't done it before. Okay, we did that. Now let's move on. So the topic I want to talk about today is vulnerability, and I want to start out by just going over what I initially think of when I hear that word and how over time I'm trying to change what I think of that word. So like off the bat, a lot of times you hear the word vulnerability and you think of like meekness and a weak being and like a little baby deer that's really exposed to harm, and it doesn't have the most positive connotation. But I think what I learn over time as I grow up into an adult, that vulnerability is a really strong thing, and it takes a lot of courage to be vulnerable and to open up and to just share yourself with the potential of criticism. Like the definition of vulnerability, and I'm gonna look over here because I probably will do this multiple times because I have a computer and notes, and just go easy on me first time. The definition of vulnerability is this, like, exposing yourself to the potential of being harmed or attacked, and it says physically or emotionally, but I think for the context of this video we'll focus on emotionally. So just saying it like that, again, makes it sound kind of scary and not like the best thing, but I think there's a lot of, like I said, courage in opening yourself up to the potential of being emotionally harmed or criticized. So if we think about why being vulnerable is so hard, I think the main thing that comes to mind for me is that when you're vulnerable, you're being really yourself. You are, like it says, being really exposed, and you're putting your authentic self out there with the potential of being criticized, which could potentially hurt. The alternative to that is kind of creating this like curated version of yourself that isn't very authentic, but is how you want people to perceive you, and is kind of like a shell in a way, which I think we all probably do at some point in our lives. So when you do get criticized in that format, it doesn't hurt as much because it's not really you, it's just this outer shell that you created, versus when you're vulnerable, you're putting your legit real self out there, and when that's criticized, it's like that real, like, it hurts, right? So you're gonna get criticized in life either way, but I think the reason why it's so much harder to be vulnerable is because, you know, that criticism is gonna feel that much more real. It's gonna sting more when it's the real you that you're putting out there. So what vulnerability looks like might be hard to identify sometimes, so I'm kind of sorry to look up at the viewfinder. What vulnerability looks like and kind of why I think it's an important thing to try to practice are for a few reasons. So the first one that comes to mind is transparency about who you are. So this is synonymous again with the words like authentic and openness and just being real. And that looks like just, you know, being your real self day to day, being, you know, the person that you actually are, rather than someone that you know is just going to be what other people are going to like or respect or be unable to criticize. And I think being transparent about who you are and just being yourself not only has the benefit of making you just, you know, not feel like a fraud and just feel like your real self, but it also shows other people that you're open to them being open with you just by being open about who you are. This kind of goes hand in hand also with sharing your struggles. So this is another example of what vulnerability looks like. It's when you have the opportunity to share something you've gone through, which is a part of who you are, and it's a really vulnerable act because that can be a scary thing to do, but you do it because it's going to either help someone or you've just kind of, felt that it needed to be done in that moment. And I think that's super powerful because by sharing your struggles, whether that's in a one-on-one conversation with someone or in a video or anything like that, it's people that are going through the same thing as you or have gone or something similar could feel less alone. They could just feel more human connection in general because they're like, oh, this person's opening up about it. Like, it may give them the power to feel like they can open up about it too when they're called to do so by whatever force or, feeling that they have. Yeah, and I think that's just really powerful. Like, especially the part about not feeling alone, that is a powerful one to me. Another example of what vulnerability looks like to me is admitting when you're wrong, and apologizing. And this is particularly powerful, I think, when you're in I want to say a position of power, but not, more like a heightened position of some sort. So an example would be like a manager versus an employee, or a parent versus a child. And by being able to be vulnerable in those positions, I think it's super courageous, because you could so easily go, I'm the mom, I have it all together, nothing's wrong, I'm in control, and I'm not a parent, but I have parents, and I think that as a child, when I saw that my parents were vulnerable, that I related to them so much more. When they shared that they had made a mistake and apologized to me, it taught me that that's, a thing anyone can do. Or when they were vulnerable about their emotions, even though that's super hard to do, I just, felt more connected to them as a parent. And the same goes for a friend or, anyone. Like, when you screw up, the vulnerable and courageous thing to do is to admit when you've done wrong, and then move forward from there, and use the people in your life to help you get better and move forward from that. Another example of what vulnerability looks like is in creativity. I think the best creations are when people are allowing themselves to be open and vulnerable. And I think of a quote from Lorde in a podcast episode that she did on the Rookie podcast, where she said something along the lines of, her music is like an audio version of the inside of her brain. And she talked about how good art that she sees is like a painting or a book or a music or whatever version, whatever medium of the inside of that person's brain, because that's like, the inside of your brain is something that typically is very private. It's only yours. It's where you can keep whatever weird or strange things you want, and no one else is going to see it. It's just for you, and it's very you. Like, it's not altered. It's just in there, right? I guess there's situations where it is altered, but for the most part, it's just you, and it's your own thing that no one else gets to see. But when you create something that's an extension of that, it is very vulnerable, and you're sharing this thing that until then you otherwise wouldn't have shared with anyone in that format, which is pretty cool. And you can usually tell to some extent when, the lyrics in a song, or, a written article by someone, or a YouTube video where the person's just being really real and sharing the inside of their brain with you. So yeah, overall, those examples, I think you can kind of already see why I think it's a good thing to practice being vulnerable. Like, you have the potential to help others by opening up about your struggles and having them feel less alone. You're opening up to really real, legitimate relationships because you're being open, and other people will see, okay, it's okay for me to be open with her or him or they or whatever because I see that they're doing it first, right? It kind of makes it okay, and it opens things up, and it just puts more real communication and real content into a world where sometimes there's a lot of stuff that's created just for the purpose of selling or manipulating, and you know, it adds more goodness and more just legit, authentic stuff to the world, which, you know, I think is pretty cool. Yeah, so to end it off, I'm just gonna give like 5 concrete kind of ways that you can start practicing being vulnerable, like ASAP. So I'm gonna look over here again, sorry. The first one is make things that you want to make and that feel really you. So whether you're creative or you don't feel like you're that creative, when you're making something and putting something out into the world, that could even be, you know, a conversation with someone. Just do the version that feels really real to you and isn't just the version that you think is not going to be criticized or that is what other people will like. Make sure that it's really, really you. The second one is share your struggles when applicable, when you can tell that someone could benefit from it, or when you feel the need to do so. So this again could be in a creation or in a video or in conversation, I think is the main way that this happens. If someone's talking to you that you care about and they're telling you a struggle that they've been through and they're saying that they feel really alone, and inside your head you're thinking, yeah, I've been there too, like tell them, share that, be vulnerable and open to it. Even if you're maybe scared of being judged, I think that you're gonna build a stronger connection between you and that person, and you are gonna kind of feel better yourself because you're going to feel less alone too by sharing this thing with them. Or even if it's not exactly the same thing, I think just that openness and vulnerability is pretty cool, just to know that, yeah, we're all going through something, right? The third thing is allow constructive criticism and don't back away from it, don't shut down. So being vulnerable might bring more criticism than if you were not so vulnerable, and be open to it. If it's constructive, really look at it and think, how can I improve from this? What can I take from this? How can I use this to grow myself? And if it's not constructive and it's just there because someone is, you know, going through their own things or jealous or upset or whatever, then you can look at it and go, okay, that's not for me, not gonna help me, I'm gonna move along from there. But be open to the fact that that criticism could show up, and then decide what you want to do with it. The fourth one is admit when you're wrong and apologize. Straight up, pretty easy. There's not a lot of situations where I don't think that this is kind of the powerful thing to do. I think in most situations you're going to end up feeling better by doing it. You're going to show someone else that you're human and that you care about them and what you've done, and you want to change and you want to get better, and you know that, we're not perfect, but you did something wrong and you're going to try to make it better. And the last one is don't hide who you are or what you like. So I know there's been times in my life, especially when I was younger, when someone was like, oh, you like that show, like that's so embarrassing, and I'm like, I don't like that show, what are you talking about? Like, it's not quite the same as adult examples, but there's situations where you might be embarrassed about certain aspects of your personality or character traits or things that you like, and it doesn't mean you have to go parading them around and telling everyone all these things, but try to question yourself when you feel the need to lie about a certain, thing that you like or a way that you are, and see if you can instead think about it in a positive way and look at it as, you know, sharing it as a way that you're being vulnerable and encouraging that openness in all human interaction, and also as, you know, something that's cool about you. It makes you unique and different and special. So yeah, thanks for watching. I will make more videos kind of on these topics of, I'm all into the self-development, personal growth, but not in too much of a scary or like structured way, just these conversations. And yeah, let me know what you think, and I will see you soon. Thanks, bye.